Hey everyone, it's Alex from SkyRC. Alright, so I figured it was a good time to go ahead and do a build video. So we're going to go all the way from the printing process of getting the plans out to the maiden flight of the airplane. Now this one is an F-16, it's a profile jet. I picked this one because it's easy to build. I haven't built this one yet, but it's similar to other ones that I've done. So it's easy to build, and the end product will end up being pretty easy to fly and easy to repair and stuff like that. Now, the first step, when you go to print your plans, normally it's on the first page, and this one it's not, but you'll see they'll put a little legend, a little scale here, so that you can verify that you printed it at the right scale. So you can go and take your ruler and make sure that it matches up, and that what you did will be as the designer intended. Now, when you do print it out, you're going to get little tick marks in the corners to help you to tell you where to cut your borders, and that's going to be the first part of the process, is cutting all the borders off, so that when you go and put the parts of the plan together, you don't have any weird gaps or anything. You'll have everything lined up just right. Now when it comes to printing out, you may have to play with the settings a little bit to get this scale to work just right. A lot of times they'll have an option to fit to page. You may need to have that checked or unchecked depending on whether or not this is working for you. So it's good, especially when they have it on the first page, to go ahead and print out the first couple pages just so you can check this with your settings on your printer, make sure everything's good, and then you can go ahead and finish and print the rest of the plans out. But to do this part, what you'll do is, I like to use a cutting pad like this, and then I use a ruler. This is an 18-inch ruler, but you can get by with just a 12-inch ruler. I like the longer one because it's good when you start to do some of the longer cuts on the foam. And this one's got a cork backing. I like to use it with a cork on top. That way I can slide it on the page without it kind of grabbing and sticking. And what you're going to do is you're going to find a couple of these tick marks, and you're going to line the ruler up like that. And the tick mark's basically like a plus sign, so I'm lining up with the horizontal part. And I'm using a utility knives. These are kind of the throwaway packs that you can get like in a 5-pack or even 10 packs from the local hardware store. Some people like to use hobby knives. I don't have this in the actual knife holder because mine's kind of bulky, and I find that when I try to use it, I can't actually get a good line of sight to my cut. So I like to just use the blade outside of the holder itself. Now when you do that, you obviously want to be careful since you're handling just the blade. And I will also say that if you're going to do a lot of cutting at once, or if you're going to cut the plans and then go ahead and do your foam cutting, your finger will probably get a little raw from holding this edge up here as you're pushing down and cutting. So just be ready for that. I know for me, once I'm done cutting the plan out, I'm usually ready for a break because my fingers starting to get a little sore. But anyway, so this is what I use, and then you're just going to have some medium pressure. You're just going to drag it against the ruler all the way across, and the paper will come right off. And you're going to do that for all the sides. Now, I will say that if you got a corner piece like this page is, you don't need to worry about the top and the side over here because it's not going to affect you putting the plans together. And sometimes, occasionally, I'll get an error where I don't get a tick mark on one of the corners. If that happens, one thing you can do is just look at the lines of the plane on the plans, and if you line your ruler up with these lines, you're still going to get the cut right. So in this case, even though I do have tick marks here, I'm just going to use the lines in the airplane as my guide, and where I can just barely see the edges of them sticking out. And I'm going to go ahead and do my cut, and then you see it comes right off, and I got a nice straight line. Again, when you're cutting, try to keep the blade pushed nice against the side of the ruler, and hold it down as best you can so it doesn't slide as you come across. If the line's not perfect, it's not the end of the world. When you go to tape it together, you can kind of compensate. You'll be able to tell where something may be crooked or a little bit improperly spaced as you get all the pages laid out. So I'm going to go ahead and take all the borders off of these, and then we're going to go to the next phase, which is going to be taping them together. Okay, so we got everything taped together. You can kind of get an idea of just how big the plans end up being. You can see that's about one sheet right there, and then the whole thing is about maybe 5 by 4.5 feet in size. Now, I didn't show the taping process just because it's pretty self-explanatory. But what I did is I started with the top row, did all of those, and then I went to the next row and did all those and kept going down. And then what I like to do is I like to use a couple pieces of tape per each sheet. Now, if I have geometry like this or like this, I want to make sure I'm going to have tape running there, so that when I cut everything apart, I'm not going to have stuff coming apart because it wasn't taped together. So usually I want at least a couple pieces to hold the paper to the one next to it. But if I have any sort of geometry, let's see, what is a good example? Like here, where normally I would probably just put one piece of tape here, but because I have all these pieces, I went ahead and made sure this whole section was taped off, so that when I go and cut these pieces out, they're all going to be together. I'm not going to have to go and try to align them again afterwards. And you can see it's not, I'm not sure if you can tell, but it's not really laying perfectly flat. I mean, like you can tell right here. So I didn't cut it out perfectly, but it's not really going to matter. And I'm probably going to go over here with some more tape. All the seams that are for the parts, you're going to want to make sure those are taped up pretty good so that you don't get a whole lot of wiggling when you go to cut. But other than that, it's pretty much, it's pretty simple. There's not a whole lot to it. Kind of common sense when you go to tape everything together. I will say a couple more things about the printing process. These are all PDF files. So when you go to print them, the Adobe will come up with its own print screen before you go to print it. And there's a couple options on a lot of the files. Usually you'll have a tiled option and a non-tiled option. And what the tiled option does is that the designer of the plans, in their drawing, their drawing will go ahead and divide this big drawing up into individual pieces for the 8.5 by 11 paper. If you do non-tiled, when you download the plans, you're gonna have to have the Adobe Print program cut these into pieces for you. So what you'll need to do is when you go to print, if you do non-tiled, you're gonna have to select the poster option in your print preview screen. That way it's gonna know to divide these up into little segments for you. Now if you do a tiled plan, it's already done for you. It's just going to show up as maybe like a 30 or 40 page file, and you're just going to print that. The only thing you may need to mess around with there is and I think I mentioned it in the last video, is the fit to page check option. You may need to have that checked or unchecked, and the way to check that on most drawings is that they'll have a little legend that you can verify with a ruler, and once you print that out, you can see if it's the right scale or not. If it's not, and you're doing a tiled plan, whatever option you have as far as the fit to page, just go ahead and do the opposite. So, and that should fix it for you. Now, if you're doing a non-tiled plan, which is what I prefer to do, I prefer to print out that way. You may want to, if you're having an issue with the scale, there's usually an option. I think it's an advanced option there in the menu when you go to print to change the scale as like a percentage. I use that a lot since a lot of times I'll either scale up plans or scale down plans. So I'll have, maybe sometimes I'll do 80% scale or 120% scale or whatever I need. You can probably play around with that too to get the scale right. But generally speaking, I haven't had an issue just doing the regular 100% on the non-tiled. And if that doesn't make a whole lot of sense, just play around with it on the computer a little bit. You'll eventually get it right. The printing process really isn't that bad. And like I said, now that I've got it all taped together, the next phase will be to go and cut the pieces out. Now you don't have to do it this way. You could technically print the pages out and cut them out before you even tape them together. I like to do it this way because I can use the 8.5 by 11 squares to help better align the pieces, as opposed to possibly something smaller like here, where this is only maybe like a 4-inch piece that I would be trying to align. Now this isn't so bad because it's only just a little bit right here, but some of these, if you're trying to align them just by eyeballing it, it's nice to have these big sheets to help when you're kind of eyeing everything and getting it all put together. Okay, so the next step will be to cut everything out. What you're going to want to do is take your knife, do this on the cutting pad. Now you'll see here I'm on carpet. I don't know if you can tell, but I'm actually on carpet. I would not tape these together on carpet. You want something that's rigid, like a table or concrete or your floor or something, but not carpet. And same thing when you go to cut out, you're going to probably want to cut out something fairly stable with a cutting mat underneath. And you're going to do it pretty much the same way that we did the border cutting. You're going to use a knife, and you're going to trace around everything here. Now you're going to do a lot more freehanding because of all the little notches and everything. But right now you're just going to focus on taking the big pieces out. Don't worry about this stuff in the middle yet. Just go ahead and take the big pieces and cut them out. Now if you have something like this where you have a long straight edge, feel free to go ahead and use a ruler for that to help you out if you want to. I typically don't, but if you feel you need to, you definitely use it there. But when you get to these curves like up here, you're gonna have to freehand most of that, and just take your time. This is definitely something you want to take your time and do it right. That'll be the next step. I'm not going to show me doing it right now, but I'm going to go ahead and cut these out, and then we'll go to getting them onto your foam board.